Over the last 40 years, cars have gotten way heavier, but now it's just ridiculous. In 1980, the average car in the US weighed 3,228 pounds. By 2022, that number was over 4,300 pounds. That's an 1,100 pound increase. So what's going on? Well, design changes, consumer trends, and in true American fashion, an interesting legal loophole are all a part of the story. Let's break it down. Some of the weight gain in newer vehicles comes from modern safety systems and added cabin comforts. For safety, cars need things like larger crumple zones, more airbags, greater cabin impact protection, you name it. These features can easily add several hundred pounds to a vehicle after all is tallied. Then there's comfort. Newer vehicles have features like sound insulation, luxury seats, elaborate trim pieces, and dashboard electronics added up, and that's another several hundred pounds right there. To show you, I chose two completely random vehicles for an example. Here is the interior of a 1988 BMW M5. The steering wheel is thin and minimal. The seats are small. The dashboard is light with only a few controls. The doors are practically just a sheet of metal with leather trim attached to it. It does not have airbags. Compare this to a 2022 BMW X5. The doors are thick, the wheel is cushioned and advanced, the dash has more buttons than a 737 cockpit. And I know this isn't a direct comparison because I didn't have access to the 2025 BMW M5, but it certainly speaks to the evolution of BMW's interiors, and it's clear where the extra weight is going. Next, a less obvious factor contributing to weight gain is the evolution of vehicle drivetrains. The popularity of four-wheel drive systems and the adoption of hybrid technology has played a significant role in this trend. Look at this graph, which shows the share of light-duty vehicle production by drivetrain from 1975 to 2022. Four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive systems have seen an explosion in usage. According to the US Department of Energy, they account for nearly 60% of the cars sold today. On average, these systems add between 100 and 300 pounds to a vehicle since power needs to be driven to all four wheels instead of just two. Then, hybrid vehicles are even heavier. Adding a hybrid system to a car increases weight by roughly 330 to 400 pounds, mostly from the battery. This means fully electric cars are no joke. Lithium-ion batteries weigh about 9 pounds per kilowatt hour, which is huge considering some cars have over 100 kilowatt hour batteries. In fact, Hertz estimates that the average electric car battery weighs over 1,000 pounds alone, which could clearly be a contributing factor. Of course, I can't talk about increased vehicle weight without addressing the elephant in the room, the SUV. Part of the reason cars are heavier is because Americans want to buy bigger cars. SUV weights can range, but according to JD Power, the average mid-size SUV weighs about 5,000 pounds. Compare this to the weight of the average sedan, which weighs 3,500 pounds. In 1980, only about 20% of new cars sold were SUVs or trucks. In 2020, that number was around 76%, with 58% of them being SUVs alone. And obviously, since SUVs and trucks are heavier than other types of cars, the more we buy them, the more it increases average vehicle weight. Finally, what you've been waiting for, the interesting legal twist. In 1975, US Congress enacted the Corporate Average Fuel Economy Standards in response to the 1973 oil crisis. These standards were intended to improve the fuel economy for cars, trucks, and SUVs for sale in the United States. Originally, the standards were set by vehicle type, but in 2008, it changed its specification to vehicle footprint, essentially how much space the vehicle takes on the road. This meant that vehicles which took up more ground space had less stringent fuel economy targets to meet, but this had unintended consequences. Instead of making cars more efficient, manufacturers just made them bigger to meet those targets. A study by the University of Michigan supports this, stating, "The footprint-based CAFE standards create an incentive to increase vehicle size." So, bigger cars means easier compliance. Importantly, engineers haven't been paid to keep cars lighter, and therefore they haven't designed them with that constraint, but with other things in mind. However, larger cars come with larger consequences, and they aren't necessarily good. While new cars might be more comfortable and safer for those in the vehicle, they aren't friendly to those outside the vehicle. Studies show that heavier cars increase the overall risk of fatalities and crashes and pedestrian deaths. In fact, one study found that doubling the vehicle weight ratio leads to a 10-fold increase in fatal accident probability. Another study found that in a collision, SUVs were 20% more likely than cars to result in other car fatalities. Additionally, heavier cars put more wear on roads and bridges. Not to mention, older parking lots, city streets, and garages weren't designed for vehicles this big. Everything just feels cramped. Lastly, modern heavier cars burn more fuel than their lighter counterparts and are generally less fuel efficient. But is it really all bad news? And can we expect to see any changes? Well, with new technology, we might see a reversal of this trend. Solid-state batteries and new solutions for hybrid and electric systems could certainly help shave off some extra pounds. Some newer vehicles have seen dramatic weight reductions over their preceding generations. For example, the 13th generation Ford F-150 dropped 750 pounds from its predecessor by using more aluminum and lighter steel in its construction. The advent of lighter composites or alloys can considerably reduce the weight of vehicles while maintaining modern safety standards. So in the end, the situation isn't really as bad as it seems. I don't personally enjoy seeing the ever-growing vehicles, but I'll admit that the manufacturers are using the extra weight to their advantage. So yes, cars are heavier, but they're also faster, safer, and smarter. The real question isn't whether we can make them lighter. The real question is if we'll ever want to, and I think that is up to us. Now, I turn to you. What do you think of this trend, and do you want to see a return to lighter vehicles? Because I know that I do. Let me know in the comments below, and please subscribe if you want to see more of this content. If you liked it, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike, and thank you for watching.